can you start Amazon FBA in 2024 with just £1,000? That is a question I get asked quite a bit. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to start Amazon FBA with only £1,000. But before I get into it, there are going to be some very important caveats throughout this video. So make sure you watch the entire thing. So the costs are broken down into two parts, really. You have your initial startup cost to get the business up and running, and then you have your first product cost. So I've got two tabs. We're going to look at the overall cost, and I'm also going to give you some additional costs that are optional at different stages, and you can decide what to prioritize yourself. So up first, we have the startup cost. I'm just going to list them out and explain anything you need to be aware of if you are doing this on a super strict budget. So number one, you need to register your own limited company. Now you can start Amazon FBA as a sole trader, but if your goal is to make a lot of money with Amazon FBA eventually and to sell the business maybe one day, being a limited company is much better, and it also has some better tax breaks as well. So I'd always recommend going that route. It only costs you £12 to register a limited company directly with HMRC, and you can do that on their website. The next thing you're going to need is a business bank account. Do not use your personal account. Have no overlap or mix up between your accounts. Have a separate business account just for Amazon. You're also going to need an Amazon professional account. Now, when you sign up for Amazon, this is going to cost you £30 in the first month. But the good thing is now Amazon automatically stop charging you unless you're actually using the Amazon selling services. So it might be the case you sign up for an account quite early on in the process, but you don't start selling for another maybe 4 to 5 months, in which case Amazon won't charge you until you have inventory at the Amazon Fulfillment Center. You're then going to need some GS1 product barcode. So this is basically, you sign up with GS1, you pay them £60 per year. That will get you 10 barcodes to get started with. And then you use each one of those barcodes every time you want to create a listing on Amazon. So you pay for a GS1 barcode, which is your unique identifier from gs1.org. You then set up your product on Amazon. So you create your listing, you enter your GS1 barcode that you're given, and then Amazon will give you your own Amazon barcode to put on your actual product. Do not be tempted to use cheap GS1 barcodes or somewhere like eBay or some of the other websites that sell them. Amazon are starting to get stricter and stricter on this, and they want them to be official GS1 barcodes from gs1.org. Next up, we have a trademark, which I've put as optional. So throughout this video, anything in bold is compulsory, and anything that's not bold is optional or can be delayed. So in the case of a trademark, the reason we want a trademark eventually is to protect your brand and to protect your listing. So if another seller tries to jump on your product listing, you can get them kicked off because you own the trademark, and you're going to have Amazon brand registry, which will give you the tools to do that with. However, if you are on a super tight budget, you might want to hold off doing this until your first product is up and running, so you're then happy to make that additional investment. That's why I've put there, delay until the first product is successful. But obviously, there is some risk that if your product is successful in the early days, there is a small chance another unscrupulous seller could try to jump on your listing and hijack your product. The same goes for business insurance. I would usually recommend starting business insurance from day one as soon as you start selling, but depending on the type of product you are selling, depends how critical business insurance is. If you're selling something that's going to be used by kids or people, and there's a good chance they can hurt themselves with it, then you're going to want insurance from day one. But if you're selling something that's completely safe, well, I don't think it's anything completely safe when a human's involved, but if you're selling something that's very unlikely someone's going to hurt themselves, then potentially, again, delay that until the first product is successful, so you're not overexposing yourself financially, and you can get started with the smallest budget possible. The same goes for accountancy. You don't necessarily have to pay for your accountants until the end of the first year, so you don't have to sign up day one. You can delay that cost. Very loosely, you're going to be paying around about £100. It's probably a bit more now, and that will cover your accountancy fee and the software you're going to need. So you're going to need something like Xero for all of your transactions to go into, and then something like Link My Books, which acts as a middleman between Amazon and your accountancy software to bring across all of the relevant invoices you're going to need. You're going to need an email address. So with Gmail, you can get one completely free. But what I also do is I normally buy the domain name for the brand that I intend to use, so that I know I've got at least a little bit of protection. I'm not going to give you proper protection, but at least by having a domain name, there's a good chance that name isn't actually being used. And also you can set up a forwarder, so you could probably have support@yourcompanyname.co.uk and get that email forwarded to Gmail, and that won't cost you a penny other than the cost of the domain name. Next up, we have Helium 10. Now, you don't have to use Helium 10. There are other Amazon tools out there. But I would say you're going to want to sign up for at least 2 months. One at the start so you can do your product research. So I use X-Ray from Helium 10 to do my product research and actually find the products in the first place. And then when you're ready to launch your product, you're going to want to sign up again so that you can do the relevant keyword research so you can optimize your listing and also set up your PPC campaigns and hopefully as well monitor your listing for any issues as well, and then you can use it on an ongoing basis. But as a minimum, you need to budget to have that software or the relevant tool for at least 2 months. One, to help with that product research in the first place, and two, to help do the keyword research so you can set up your listing and optimize your PPC. And you also need to do training and research. The good thing is you can do this completely free on YouTube. Subscribe to my channel, subscribe to various other UK sellers. I try to avoid some of the other sellers that aren't in the UK, but try to subscribe to as many UK sellers as you can, get as much information as you can. Of course, we do have the FBA Elite course, but that's $499, and if you're on a £1,000 budget, that's going to blow half your budget, but it is there, and I've put a link to it anyway. But certainly, if you go through my back catalogue of videos, it goes all the way back to 2018, from day one when I started Amazon FBA, so you can see my entire journey documented there. So definitely check that out. So your total startup costs, excluding optional and delayed costs, is only £200. But as you can see, it can be a lot higher if you're doing things, what I would say is the right way, and paying for these things earlier on in the process. So we've got £200 of startup costs to get going. We've then got the product costs, and there are so many variables to this depending on the type of product you choose, how much that product actually costs, how many units you're going to want to sell per month. So there's lots of different variables. So I've just picked one example for this video to show you potentially how I would approach it if I only had £1,000. So the first thing, you're going to need some product samples. A product sample from China is probably going to cost you anywhere from $50 to $100 on average. So what I often do to save money in that process is I order a couple of samples from your local Amazon marketplace. So go on to amazon.co.uk, order a couple of the competitors you're going to be up against, because you're going to get those products in hand next day. You haven't got to wait 2-3 weeks for your supplier to send them. And then you can formulate your own product specification from having tested those existing products. It's cost you a lot less money. It's a lot quicker. And then you can go to the suppliers and say, right, this is exactly what I want. Send me one sample to this specification. And that's how you can keep your product sample cost down and also save yourself a lot of time as well. You're going to need to invest in photography. This is one of the things I would not recommend doing yourself unless you are experienced at taking photos of products. Even if you know how to use a camera, unless you've got a good eye for taking product photos, say you're a wedding photographer, I still probably wouldn't do your own product photos unless you've really got a good idea of what it takes to make a product look good and convert customers on Amazon. So I've put a minimum budget there of around about £200. But you can easily spend a lot more depending on the type of product. Some products you can shoot in studio, it's going to be nice and cheap. Some products you're going to need to do a lifestyle shot, or maybe you're going to need to hire a model or a pet or something to do that particular shoot. So photography costs can go up quite substantially, but as a minimum, you're probably looking at somewhere around about £200 to get 7 or 8 decent photos done by someone in a studio that's got experience shooting product photos, not just general photography. Next up, we have packaging design, which is optional as much as you want your product to look great. If you don't want to invest in it at this stage, you can either do it yourself, or you can maybe ask your supplier what off-the-shelf packaging they've got. Maybe it might be a case of just applying your logo to maybe a brown craft box, which looks quite nice. So this is an area that is optional. And it depends on the product as well. Some products are super giftable. If you're going to have a picture of your packaging in the background of the main photo, then invest in your product packaging, definitely. If it's a product where no one's really going to care about the packaging, then it is potentially one area where you can cut costs at this early stage. We then have the product insert design, which is generally going to be your instructions for the customer if the product needs instructions, and then a polite request asking for a review. But this is completely optional. I see a lot of people maybe overthinking the product insert design, and often these just end up going straight in the bin. So I wouldn't invest in this heavily if you're on a very strict budget, but certainly if you do have the time and money, spend time creating an insert that actually offers value, more than just something that someone's going to put straight in the bin, something that's going to make it difficult for them to put them in the bin. Think about that when you're doing your product insert design. We then have your logo design, which I've bolded here because you need a logo. You don't necessarily need custom packaging, and you don't necessarily need a product insert design, despite the fact both of them will help. But a logo design is essential, as you're going to need that for your trademark application. It's going to be on your product and your packaging, so you can actually add your product to Amazon and prove that you are the brand owner. You've then got the bulk order itself, and this is where costs can be absolutely anything depending on the product you choose. So I always recommend to anyone that's doing Amazon FBA with a suitable budget is to order 3 months worth of stock for their first bulk order. And the reason for this, it's going to take you a few weeks to launch the product. And the worst thing you can do on Amazon is go out of stock, as basically everything resets and you go back to stage one and you're going to have to do your launch again. So you want to avoid going out of stock. However, if you're on £1,000 budget, there is no way you can take this approach. You're just not going to be able to afford 3 months worth of stock. So in this instance, what I would recommend is to treat this process, if you've only got £1,000, as a test to see whether you can sell that product at around break even. This isn't about making money at this stage if you're on a budget this small. If you try to go into a niche and you've only got £1,000 and the product's selling 100 units per month and you need to order 3 months worth of inventory, you're just not going to have enough money. So you have to be realistic. You should see this as a test case. If this works and you can sell this product for a break even using sponsored ads, which we're going to come back to in a moment, then at that point, you're going to feel happier to raise additional funds, as most of us can get additional funds if we want to. It's just a question of how much we trust the business model. So maybe you might use this £1,000 as a test, and if it works, you're happy to go a bit heavier. So in this example, I'm saying you're buying 100 units and you're going to try and sell 100 units in your first month. So if we can get each unit with a DDP cost of £5, so DDP means delivery duty paid, so that includes your shipping, customs duty and VAT. So that is a fairly realistic price to aim for a product that maybe you're selling at around £15 to £20. So 100 units at £5 will cost you £500. You see in brackets there, I've also got how you fund the second batch. That is something to keep in mind if you were ordering 3 months at a time. So you'd order 3 months of stock, and then probably a couple of weeks into that first batch, you'd be ordering your second batch. And that is something a lot of people overlook, is as you want to avoid going out of stock, you'll be ordering that second batch long before you get your original investment back from your first batch. And that's why I'm saying if you've only got £1,000, you can't take that approach. You've got to treat this as a test. Can you sell these 100 units at about break even? If so, raise the additional funds, then go heavy and order the correct amount of inventory. You may also face limitations from suppliers who don't want to offer customizations at such a low unit quantity, or they might just have a minimum order quantity like 500 or 1,000. You can't order the product in the first place. We then have a product inspection. So if you're going to invest money, get the product inspected in China before it leaves China, so there's any issues, the supplier can rectify this. Now I've put it as optional, as you're only spending £500 on stock. But if you're spending £2,000 or £3,000 on stock, absolutely get that inspection done in China before it leaves that country. We then have sponsored ads. So in order to launch your product, you're going to need to run pay-per-click advertising on Amazon. As a starting point, and this varies massively from every single product that you're going to look at, as a starting point, I say aim for 1 sale per £5 of PPC spend. And on a product like this, which you're probably going to be selling at somewhere between £15 and £20, a £5 spend will eat up all of the profit margin. That's why I'm saying use this as a test case to see if you can sell through at break even. So if you have a £15 daily budget to sell 3 sales per day for 30 days, that's roughly going to be your 100 units of inventory gone. That's going to cost you about £450 in PPC. Now you can either put this on a credit card to help you with your cash flow, or it can be deducted from the sales proceeds from Amazon before they disperse the rest of the money to you, so you don't necessarily have to find that money up front, as it can come from the sales proceeds. And when you add all of those product costs together, you get to £800, which gives you a grand total, including the startup cost, of £1,000. So can you start Amazon FBA in 2024 with £1,000? Yes. Would I recommend it? Absolutely not. Starting Amazon FBA with £1,000 is an absolutely terrible idea. What I would say is if you only have £1,000, is to look to increase that capital first. Maybe you can look into maybe Amazon arbitrage, where you're just going to flip existing products. But I would not start Amazon FBA with £1,000. Now, if you have more than £1,000 and want to know what the realistic type of costs are to start Amazon FBA, I've got another video which shows you 3 different example products and potentially how much it would cost you to order and launch those products. And I'm going to link to that shortly in this video. But just before I get there, we've got the usual Helium 10 discount codes here with 10% off every single month with FBA Elite 10 or 20% off for 6 months with FBA Elite 20. And if you do want to see that video that shows you all of the example costs, if you go to fbaelite.teachable.com, that will take you to the FBA Elite training course. And at the moment, we've got the first module completely free for you guys. So if you go to fbaelite.teachable.com and click on preview course, you'll see that module 1 is available for you guys to view completely free. And video number 7 here, how much money do you need that goes through everything in a lot more detail. So if you've got a larger budget than £1,000, that should give you all the answers you need to know. So head over there now and give that module a watch. Alternatively, if you already know how much money you need to start Amazon FBA and you just want to find your first product, I'm going to pop up a video now that shows you the exact process that I go through to find my Amazon FBA products, and I'll see you guys over there.